my family and I. I can't recall a statement in which she clearly expresses her feelings so much.
Feelings like disappointment that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex intend to step back as senior royals, and regret that the bombshell news was dropped last week without warning.
You can't just be a royal and then decide not to be.
The couple's plans have stirred skepticism, even blame, from a press that has, at times, fixated on Meghan Markle's biracial background. This from last fall's ITV documentary.
I never thought that this would be easy, but I thought it would be fair.
The British Empire faces an extraordinary crisis.
Now, the monarchy has seen a storm like this before. In the 1930s, King Edward VIII fell in love with an American, even gave up the throne for her. But the monarchy was on firmer ground then. These are different times, and the question today, what does it all mean for the royal family's future? Okay, now Richard Fitzwilliams is a royal commentator with deep insight into the nuts and bolts of British society. Richard, you're also accustomed to decoding royal language and intention, so tell us, what did you read into the Queen's statement that the rest of us might have missed?
Well, I am not sure that a very large number of people missed what the Queen meant, simply because there has been the most extraordinary media circus worldwide. There's fascination about what was going to happen at the summit today. The Queen made it absolutely clear that she is only too pleased to back something that is unprecedented, Harry and Meghan stepping down from royal duties as senior royals, but continuing them in an independent way. I would say that it's been a hellish 2 months for the royal family with the Prince Andrew debacle, relatively recent, and this last week has been absolutely ghastly. But the hope is that this will provide, certainly for the future, perhaps a template that others who are unhappy with royal duties conventionally may choose to use.
I am curious to know, do you think that the Queen had any choice but to set Harry and Meghan free in a way?
Frankly, I don't think so, because there would have been a backlash possibly in the form of some form of kiss and tell interview. That is something that was the nuclear button. I mention it because it was on practically every front page of a newspaper today. Equally, she is fond of her grandson. She recognizes that he and Meghan have tremendous problems in adjusting to royal life and are pressurized and unhappy, as they made clear in the ITV documentary after their Southern African visit. So she compromised.
So you talk about sort of creating a new model for royals going future. Is that ultimately good or bad for the royal family as an institution?
Well, I think it's following royals in Europe to some extent, just as marrying non-royals did, and also the abolition of the male child taking precedence did. But of course it depends on the individuals, and it will depend on how they handle it. And Harry and Meghan must be well aware that every single thing they do will be microscopically examined from now on, especially having, I have to say, mishandled the last week in an extraordinary way and putting the monarch under a lot of pressure. I think that we have a very, very interesting times ahead. I just hope they make the best of them, and they have remarkable talents, and that they can spread what they're really good at is a charitable activism around the Commonwealth and elsewhere.
Well, I suppose the media circus will continue then. Richard Fitzwilliams, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Now, as we said, this move by Harry and Meghan raises all sorts of questions about how a new arrangement with the monarchy would work. So now we turn to Omid Scobie. He covers the royals with a special emphasis on the younger members of the family, and he's got some answers for us.
When Harry and Meghan say they want financial independence, they mean they no longer want to take from the sovereign grant, which is parts provided by the government and the UK taxpayer. Of course, that means that they do have to take their money from elsewhere. They'll be earning that money, but they'll also be looking for father, Prince Charles, to still provide some funding from the Duchy of Cornwall, which is his estate. Well, despite this big change to Harry and Meghan's working model, we'll still see them at Trooping the Colour, we'll still see them at all the big royal gatherings. We'll also see them supporting the Queen and doing work in her name, whether that's overseas tours, they're still coming, and of course engagements here in the UK and around the world and across the Commonwealth. So for them, the work does continue. This just allows them to take on other work that doesn't necessarily follow the agenda of the royal family. Well, one of the hardest things for Harry and Meghan has been basically trying to get jobs like normal people. It's not the done thing in the royal family. Sophie and Edward tried to do this in the late 90s and it ended in disaster. The Queen had to buy them out of their jobs. Well, Harry and Meghan still have Frogmore Cottage here in the UK as their base. That doesn't change. The UK is still very much home for them, but of course Canada's now in the picture. We know they've stayed in Vancouver on Vancouver Island in the past, and that will continue to be part of the picture temporarily. However, it's not known where else they'll live in Canada moving forward. Could there be a place in Toronto? Meghan loves it there. It'll certainly be high up on the list. So it's actually a huge bonus for the royal family to now have Harry and Meghan as ambassadors for the royal family living in Canada. We don't often see members of the royal family living in other Commonwealth countries. This in fact will help grow the brand of the firm moving forward. And for Harry and Meghan, it's a special place for them. There have never been senior members of the royal family who have stepped away from those duties and taken on their own jobs, funded themselves, but kept one foot in the House of Windsor to continue doing royal engagements. It's why it's taken so long to reach this point. We've yet to hear about how they'll be funded moving forwards. Of course, they still need protection officers. Will Canada be stepping in to help pay for that? How about Frogmore Cottage? It was taxpayer funded for the renovations. Will they be repaying some of that back to the sovereign grant? There are a lot of unanswered questions, and they're ones that I'm keen to get answers to. But I think most of all, the thing that we should be celebrating at the moment is Harry and Meghan have actually found the happiness and the positive that they wanted in this deal, and hopefully their lives will be very different moving forward.
Now, we want to give you the chance to weigh in on these potential new Canadians. You can head to our Instagram story, try out our virtual red chair, and answer today's question.